For almost a decade on my TV show Interview with Ed, I've been interviewing extra-dimensional beings and consciousnesses from a number of different realms. Many of my questions have been answered, but with every answer comes more questions. Join me on my ongoing quest to find out, who are we? Why are we here? And where are we going? All right, we are back for a wonderful Sunday, and we've got another round with Pamela Aaralyn, and super excited to have you back on today. Welcome, Pamela.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we were just chatting about how you're in multiple places at the same time a lot.
Yeah.
How does that, is that because of the intuitive work you're doing or the interconnectedness you have, or can you explain that?
I'm what is called a seer. And that's what my grandparents would call me in my indigenous background. And then how that started out was just seeing different beings come to me. But as I progressed with this unique experience, I began to learn how to remote view. And initially I thought, well, this isn't going to be like any other experience I've had with seeing visions or meeting different angelic beings or galactic beings. I meet a lot of galactic beings, but they're in my realm. So, I'm now 48 years old or about to be. And throughout these past 8 years, what I've been experiencing is me going into their realm, into their interplanetary dimensional experiencing. And that has been a trip. I've really never experienced anything like it. So now when I talk to Kaya, I get to go to her realm, and get all this. So that's how channeling humans from the future started, was that I was remote viewing. And it feels like, boy, you just see it, but it doesn't feel that way in remote viewing. You literally are there in your body, in your form, and you're having these conversations. And, our minds are conditioned to experience time from what we understand from our past up until now. So when you go into these realms and you have these talks and you ask things about what you would think would be similar to right now, it's really so not similar that it kind of warps your mind and you go, what? Can't even, from where we stand right now, we can't even possibly know what, say, the humans in the 2100s in that year timeframe would be like. It was so bizarre to me, as we discussed in our last meeting here. So
Right.
I've been meeting some new people since I talked to you, and I'm
Okay.
fresh with one as of this week. Only for 3 days, I've been remote viewing and talking to a new being in the year 2075. Which isn't too far away. I thought it would be
Yeah.
interesting to get a little bit closer. So I met an astrophysicist who has a lot of information on our bodies and how our bodies operate and what scientists have found out about our neurological system, and how we sense things, how we perceive things, and how that shifts between now and 2075. So her name is Hannah. And again, she is a very brilliant astrophysicist. She uses some vocabulary that I'm still trying to assimilate. So we'll see how that goes. But you're more than welcome to ask her any questions, because as a channel, what I can do now that I've met her and I have her energy signature, I can bring her through as I am doing right now, and we can ask her any questions. I can stay awake for it and observe it, or I can go into trance and let you guys take over with your questions. It is completely 100% up to you. And that's the fun part, because everyone thinks channeling is so woo-woo. And I think channeling is a very mental, biophysical, scientific thing that happens similar to remote viewing versus, me going to them like I'm doing remote viewing. They're coming to me, taking over this mind-body construct. I don't have a very set belief system that I am a mind-body construct, so they find that pretty easy to do. Nothing woo-woo about it.
Right.
I don't have a very separation-based belief system,
Mhm.
which most people do. I've trained that out of me throughout the years, and many teachers who work with me have been clear in trying to keep me in a oneness environment. So that's the only reason why I can channel so clearly. There's no real fun, really special reason. I'm not a saint or anything. I'm a normal person. If you saw me on the street, I would be in jeans and a t-shirt, and the shirt would likely be stained, and I'd be carrying a massive bag that belonged to one of my kids and probably a band instrument in the other hand. And my car would be dirty. And I would be rushing, and I would be going, oh, look, that's so beautiful. I really want to connect to that person, but I'll be running while I'm doing it. So I'm a fairly kind of busy mom, a busy mom of
Yeah.
work. A normal person who just has these bizarre experiences that you'd really never know about.
Yeah. I think well, a lot of us, well, I can't make the claim of a busy mom, but I think a lot of us are, we all have our normal day lives and we're having these extra senses, extra sensorial perceptions of reality. And it's affecting everybody in a different way. So we're just navigating it, and your testimony and you being you and sharing you is just helps us all connect and makes try to make sense of it all, right? If what we can make sense of. But thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited to connect. I know we had exchanged a little emails. We had Will. Is he on the call today? I think so. Yes. He came in and brought in an ancient Orion consciousness that sort of is represented ancient human past. So I just thought, wow, wouldn't it be cool to connect with someone from our future in the not so distant future, as like our Palladians and other beings could have that perspective, us in the future on these higher density levels. So someone a little bit closer to home, an earthbound being. We could just jump right into it. And uh, I've got a few questions, and I'm sure everybody else will, as they get familiar with the energy, they'll formulate some questions as well.
That sounds really good.
Do you need any time to get into the channeling state, or is you kind of ready
I
to go?
I don't. I just kind of let the being take over as they want to take over. I try not to make it a really big serious thing. And if they want me to go into trance, that'll just happen and you will know.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Is it good for me just to start putting my questions together then?
Absolutely. And her name is Hana.
Hana. Okay. That's a great
Um,
place to start.
is an astrophysicist. Just some things about her. She is a mom of two, a single mom. So that's interesting. Most of
Hmm.
the beings that I bet are married and well settled. That's interesting. She does a lot of travels and she does a lot of collection of ancient samples from different archaeologists that she tells me about that she's been working with, particularly in the lands of Syria. She's very fascinated with Syrian soil right now and looking at a lot of different places where most people just haven't been or they didn't find what she found,
Hmm.
what she was for and eventually found, which had to do with understanding our human DNA, with what scientists call junk DNA,
Mhm.
and it's not junk at all. And
Right.
that's eventually found out, and they're happening upon those discoveries, at least right now. So,
Awesome. Well, right now we actually have the great journalist Graham Hancock, who's come out finally is able to have a voice with his show Ancient Apocalypse, and it's reaching the masses. And even one of his colleagues, Randy Carlson, was recently on Tucker Carlson's show, which is another big mass audience to get this sort of information. And what he talks about, maybe you're familiar with the 26,000 year cycle, the 13,000 year cycle, the Younger Dryas age of these cataclysmic events that have come around and have a timely, almost clockwork type of time of creating havoc on the planet. And there's different theories of a weakening magnetic field, a giant solar event, maybe in combination with the magnetic field, asteroids coming down. Just wondering if in her time, Hannah's time, has this already happened, and or is it happening? And if she had any more information about these cyclical events. Hey there, if you like this broadcast and want to join us live each week, come over to the Interview with Ed membership portal. The links are down below. And you too can join in the conversation, asking the channel's questions directly and the beans at the channel. And we have a bunch of other offerings. So come on over and hang out with us. It's a great community. See you there.
well, we may as well just go ahead and come on through. I'm Hana.
Hey, Hannah, thank you for coming.
Thank you. What you are discussing now is in relation to 175,000 year cycles and then 1800-year cycles. Granted, these time frames shift based upon what you are experiencing not just from the earth-based perspective, but from the universal consciousness perspective. And that is what our science focuses on. We are deeply connected to the energy of cosmogenesis, and we are open to your questions today. I have my team here with me. I have Georges and Francais and another girl named Jill, who is my assistant, and she's also an astronaut at this time, although not through NASA. That no longer exists. Did you believe that it could possibly no longer exist by now? Well, it's gone. Many of you won't be so surprised. But we start again with 175,000 year cycles, and then 1,800 year cycles, and then 27,500 year cycles. So we have that. And if you are understanding the mathematics involved in that equation, you can understand the infinite loop of consciousness and all of what the scientists have called the pi figure.
Mm-hmm. The pi, the Fibonacci spiral, that the mathematical equation pi.
Well, that's one of the equations that it could possibly lead to, but as you know, there are literally trillions.
Okay, golden ratios, yeah.
We are deeply interested in that figure, the golden ratio itself, and we utilize that predominantly to exercise our understanding of how the brain produces unique synapsing over a wave and then ignites the dormant DNA from the amygdala in the human brain, and then it travels down in various neurological signals and then activates the base of the spine, and all of the ganglia nerves that arise from there are triggered and catalyzed into awakening your memory experiences. And when you awaken the memory portions of the DNA, the brain will react differently. And we can talk about that as much as you want today.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious. Is that similar to Nassim's, Haranim's idea of the proton being a black hole? Is that sort of connecting us to these other realms?
That is a beginning point. And then as you expand further into the theory of entanglement, you can understand how time is only feasible when the DNA is unawakened.
Can you repeat that again? The time is only feasible.
Time is only feasible in a practical manner. You can only contain it in the manner of aging and health, and the manner of regeneration of neurons for both active and inactive DNA. Time is only feasible when you haven't done that, and you are containing it in a unique way by deadening the neurons over and over and over again. However, in this year, what's exciting is that you can no longer do that. And so many of you are experiencing the vast symptoms from this shift in your neurological systems uniquely.
Oh, I see. So DNA has a direct correlation to how we experience time.
Right.
And because of the all the photonic energy and other things that are happening to the planet right now, where that DNA is now being perhaps what was known as dormant DNA is being activated so we can experience time in a new way.
Somewhat. You're on track, Ruben.
Okay.
However, that is an example of a repercussion of the initial sparking of the DNA from within you. The module of the soul itself is sparked from the unique consciousness that also incorporates in collective consciousness. Now we understand that in cosmogenesis, you can use these various tools to awaken yourselves, but you must do it uniquely from the core and the center of yourself. And this is very individual. Granted, so many individuals are awakening in this unique way, and you've called it so many things. You've called it the Great Shift. Some of you are now calling it the Flash, but you are awakening in brief moments of time and forgetting what your purpose is, where you are, who you are, in smaller components, what you are doing, what your goals are. These are just some small examples, but some of you are having the unique synapsing patterns when the brain synapses in a unique way. These neurons spark, and the way that they run across a wave in the brain becomes, how shall I say it? You become more accessible, and then you begin to spark uniquely. Other people pick up on that spark. The best way I could describe this would be like you're all spark plugs in the engine of a car. And that car in the past was perhaps a Ford, and now it's a Bugatti. So we say that you've grown,
I see.
and
Super.
we would say that you spark together from the unique energies of the brain, and science would call this entanglement. And you can remember each other. You can remember different aspects and fields of consciousness, and perhaps you've called this déjà vu. Many of you go into psychosis if you don't manage this appropriately in your what you call awakenings. But we have deeply studied cosmogenesis, and we have formulated a connection between what you're calling awakening and the geomagnetic storms, the solar flares. The environment is not causing what you're experiencing. You are causing the environment. You are causing that reaction, and it is following the synapses and sparks in your brain individually and collectively.
So just to backtrack right quick, could you, I'm not too familiar with the term cosmogenesis. Could you share what that means exactly?
Cosmogenesis is a unique study of time, and in certain surroundings with time, when one becomes aware or conscious, they begin to understand the unique cycles of past, present, and future. For instance, as an astrophysicist, we love to study the death of a star, but we don't study by its birth. We study by its death. So the death of the star, and then the life of the star, and then the regeneration of the entire cycle is something that perhaps you would call entropy. And this is what we study, except on a grander scale.
Fascinating. And this cosmic event that humanity is going through would that be, how does that fit into the study?
Individually, you have created your own events. You have become quite tired of life as you know it and the way that the world systems operate. And this has caused unique sparks of consciousness from the amygdala itself. And as your brain begins to synapse differently, even if it's something that is anger or resentment, it's still a less dense experiencing. And from this module, you can awaken your consciousness. You can become more aware of the deeper nature of the cosmic soul in not just your universes, but in the entire construct of cosmology. Do you understand how big this can be and so small? It's so individual and so grand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine if everyone on the planet decided at the same time to stop abiding by the systems that are been put into place, then we could have great change in a very short amount of time. But it's the reason it seems it's taking so long is because there's so many people just still figuring it out.
Yes, it's been a bit of a slow burn, hasn't it?
It can feel slow for times, but then you look at the collective and it's probably anything faster would be much more bumpier for the collective to make the adjust for. I have a feeling we're in the natural process of the path of least resistance.
Mm. Well, when you reach my year, you will recognize all of the events that have come along the way. And if you believe that the small things that have happened, such as COVID, are big events, you have a lot coming and a lot in store for you. But the cosmos, well, they are respective to your unique experience, and how you perceive them is up to you individually. The ascension module, as you call it, is no longer experienced collectively in our time. In our time, it is an individual experience and is not half as bumpy as what you are experiencing now. So we look at what you are experiencing and we're happy to not have gone through it.
In your time when children are born, are they fully in remembering of their past lives and or simultaneous lives?
From what our studies are showing right now, science has dictated that it would be about 50% of babies in this time for these past 5 years. They are awakened immediately.
And I'm assuming we're having this conversation, so our timelines are interconnected. So your past is our past, and for now, in a sense, unless things change. So your potential future is probably a quite likely one. During the shift in the time that we're in now, we already know we have an upcoming economic collapse and earth changes, but could you go into detail about some of those and how it appeared for your reality?
Well, in my reality, I was only in my early 20s during your year right now. So
Mhm.
at that time, what I remember is that my parents owned a massive pharmaceutical corporation. And people began to just not, you couldn't afford, I'd say, let's see, I was in my 30s by the time you couldn't afford that. So you can do the math on it because in your year now, I would have been 23, I believe. Yeah, 23 in 2023. So when you're thinking about this now, I've had a full career in astrophysics at this time. I had to take over my parents' company. They completely went bankrupt, as did all of the biochemical companies, pharmaceutical corporations, and it didn't happen slowly. That's something that perhaps you're not expecting, but this is a crash that happens rather abruptly and rather quickly. And when you have bigger things at hand in your world, you're not worried about making your regular doctor's appointments, now are you?
Right.
I remember being in university at this time and just going through MIT. And I was beginning to take deep experience in a grant that was given to me by the government. And then it was taken back because the government was in its initial stages of collapsing and they would no longer do grants after 2025. MIT would no longer offer any sort of grants through the government, which is also unique.
Mhm.
So that those are things that have been hidden from you for a long time, that our government is on the brink of such global debt, but now you're aware. So many of you are becoming more aware of how deeply in debt you are in your in the fiscal proportionate. It's just ridiculously painful to consider it, but it's not that you crash and burn and the economic collapse. Is that the pharmaceutical companies began first. That's what I remember.
Mm.
And I remember that they did not have a long, slow burn, such as in what you call ascension or in the evolution of the God mind. It's not a long, slow burn, and it's not a long awakening either. The pharmaceutical companies never catch on. That's the interesting thing is that we are in my time. I know I'm flipping around a lot in time modules, but
Mhm.
in my time, we are completely self-supporting, or we have benefactors and angel investors. We don't have governments backing us up. We do this because we want to. We're not well paid. Um, we just needed to put our minds together. The university system started to collapse around 2046. Therefore, it a lot of the people that were being educated for what I do now, um, and I'll give over my company to my children. But a lot of people that were being educated were children at that time. They were in their 20s and 30s, and they had to carry on this work. But the pharmaceutical companies collapsing meant that you had to become incredibly aware of how to be healthy. And that was the biggest thing is that how can you be healthy without depending upon doctors and allopathic care systems? And that was the biggest effect of the financial collapse is how to be healthy in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. I see that happening already. We also see it with Bill Gates selling all his Pfizer stock just a few days ago or a few weeks ago. So we know that they know,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, that things are falling apart. And I'm assuming that's a big part of that is just with all of the trickery and lies that have been told to humanity and sort of humanity's kind of coming to that realization. I'm sure that has a big part of it. Economic issues also having a part of it. So I'm sure it's a brew of different things. But I'm sure it was difficult in your time. But I'm sure now where you're at now, seeing that is the evolution is a was a good one. People taking charge of their health.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And my parents own stock in Moderna, and we're scientists for their working team. So I'll just give you a little hint that could be next.
Um, when it comes to monetary systems and how government backed, we know the government backed central bank digital currencies in our timeline is coming soon. Probably not going to last too long, I would assume, if they even make it to make it to the forefront. What's the main monetary system that you guys use in your time?
We use something similar in that I'm here in Houston and we still use the dollar, but we don't use it as often. It's more of a backup. And we utilize via exchange of trade services for the most part.
Mhm.
And there are some people beginning to utilize, I don't know what you would call this in your time, but it's an electrical system where people have and so many people don't want to do this. This didn't take on, it didn't take hold the way that governments thought that it would. They thought we would just eat this up. But my parents said, don't ever do it. So I didn't do it, and my children aren't doing it. But there's this system, and it's not like having a credit card or a debit card, but it's like you have a number, and it's a 6-digit number, and it's equated with you. It's in connection to your social security number in the United States. And a lot of people have one global bank system. So all of the monies are digital. But there's only about, say, 35% of the population that took hold of it. No one really wanted to do it. And the rest of people use either digital currencies. We have another third of the population that use I guess you would call this, it's similar to a cryptocurrency for what you would know of it now, but we call it something else, and it's become digital but not governmentally backed. So this is run by smaller state-based, what would you call it in your time? You're used to have credit unions. So it's something like that, except more secure and ran by individual towns and provinces and states, but it's not governmental. And this is something that was created by a new political platform that only recently came into existence within the past 10 years. So I'm telling you something else. You got out of the dual party system in the United States.
I was gonna say I didn't see that lasting too much longer. I would assume that would
Oh,
take
was
take
so thank-
itself out.
I was so thankful as a 20-year-old when I could see the beginnings of that collapse.
Mm. Yeah, that's been a lot of the problems we have in the world are because of that. So I think people are figuring that one out and trying to move in other directions. I hope. I don't know. I never bought into the two-party system, but interesting. And how did people uh, physically this transition into taking charge of their own health? There's a lot of worry in our time right now with the all the toxins being spilled. We're having this strange anomaly of trains derailing, chemical plants getting blown up, and food sources being contaminated almost intentionally. Is that how does that play out in your timeline?
It worsens, unfortunately. What we would recommend on our team is for you to um, build different homes that are. Um, we do this now because our air quality is not exceptional. So we've had to begin to build homes that are closer to water-based systems so that we can hold and acclimate and store water. We can retain water from those systems, and we can also cleanse our water by working with air particulates. So we have the same things that science is discovering probably about right now, if I remember accurately in your time frame. They're studying certain algae components combined with charcoal to purify your water. Well, there's something similar that can purify your air, and it's also an algae of sorts. So this is going to be interesting. If you can keep up with the water systems, you can utilize that as well to clean your air and to pull that into your central air system. So we have central air systems, much like you do, except that it's infused with certain filtrations that utilize this unique algae that cleanse the air. And we do this so that we can have really pure oxygen at all times. Luckily, we still have plenty of trees. So people are really worried about the desecration of the forests and things, but we still have clean oxygen. It's just that a lot of the chemical spills and a lot of the things that you don't know of that are incorporating a lot of disasters naturally in your world, a lot of these things are going to have to be filtrated out pretty soon. I'd say those scientists started building those systems around year 2043.
And I would assume with the toxicity in the agriculture as well, that we would figure out better ways to mass produce food without the toxicity.
We don't. We didn't. But we do in our time. You
Right.
did what
We
you
can.
did instead. You came together in intentional community systems,
Mhm.
and there were different farmers coming over to build these systems. And some of them are doing it a little bit now in unique type of hydroponic systems, but it's beyond that. There are systems of shelving gardens. There are different systems of that you begin to incorporate in your own properties. And a lot of people begin gardening for themselves and then sharing in co-ops with their cities, and it goes bigger. It goes into various states and provinces beyond that as well. So it's that you become the farmers. You're no longer depending upon these mass farmers that produce to grocery stores, et cetera. That changes relatively fast, beginning in, let me go back. It was year 2055 when that began to finally set in.
We still got a ways to go.
Yeah.
Mark has his hand up. I'll get to you in just a second, Mark. I want to ask one question because it is related to some downloads I've been getting around different types of free energy devices or energy devices that can, say, heat a home indefinitely without having to be tied to a grid system. Are these, I would assume these devices are going to be coming out in the next couple of years.
They're called resonance systems. We have them now. They're crystalline energy based, coming from a source of plasma, and then with wrapped copper as a transmitting device.
Like a
So
Nikola Tesla type of device.
very similar, except add more plasma. That's something that he didn't get a chance to do before his untimely death. We've done deep research in it. And it's going to become reincorporated, and someone's already working on that now, thankfully. We're very grateful.
And is this information going to be able to get to the masses, or do we have to fight
Absolutely.
it?
Oh, no,
Okay.
absolutely. Because a lot of, say, what this channel is doing, a lot of people become more scientific remote viewers, and they contact different beings from the past and the future. When spirituality is just understood as science, it becomes a different ballgame for what we can create together. So it's people such as yourself and everyone here that work together to create this. It's a normal person, a normal scientist who has, his own field of research. Granted, he gets fired from that field of research, as you would suspect, but he's a pretty normal person who believes in this realm without considering it woo-woo, as this channel often puts it.
Right. Yes. Lots of woo in my life too. Go ahead, Mark. Ask your question.
So, I wanted to ask a question that I don't know why Ruben hasn't asked this yet, but what about, have you had like full disclosure, and are ETs helping you and sharing technology with you?
We have had various moments of disclosure, and we have had moments where people become aware because of their unique experiences. And there's leaks of information that have happened. So it just was a leak that the disclosure happened. But so many individuals also are seeing things that you can't deny it anymore. There are forums and institutions in our time frame, particular like remote viewing institutions, galactic remote viewing institutions. We really look forward to you starting these institutions and understanding the science of what you're doing that you're calling woo-woo, because yes, you're having individual disclosures that can no longer be denied. And people around the world are talking about it. So the governments still deny, but they also readily admit when something happens, and they will say, yes, it is an unidentified flying object that is highly likely to be an extraterrestrial. And they're beginning to say, okay, it's an extraterrestrial from this system, the Mars system, or from the Pleiades system. Those are the two forms of contact that we've had in 6 months, the past 6 months alone. So they had to admit it because of all the individual disclosures happening and because of the research institutes that back the work.
On that note, so myself being in that UFO research realm, and myself and many of my colleagues are very aware of the alien invasion scenario that the so-called deep state plan to put on to create fear, and we're seeing a bit of that amp up this past week or so. Did they even attempt it? Did the collective just totally ignore it? In your timeline, how did that play out?
We mostly laughed at it. When
Yeah.
my children thought it was hilarious, it was all over TikTok. Can you believe you still have that?
TikTok is still going on?
It's the main content in our time, but we
Oh my God.
platform as well for social media, and it's mostly like science social media as well.
Okay. So it was a nothing burger, basically, what they tried to pull off.
It just got laughed away. It seemed so silly, and it was mostly just a matter of look at this in our skies. And look, there's an attack on humans. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, everyone in that town where they said it was a big town, they weren't smart enough to say it was a small city in the middle of nowhere. In the news, what everyone saw was that it attacked Beijing. Well, everyone's in Beijing. You can see from the skies what's happening. So it seemed so silly because it was just unique crafts that anyone could say would be somewhat man operated. And if they were going to attack, why didn't they? So they came down and they made these loud humming noises. So there was this event, and the humming noises emitted electromagnetic energy into the field, and it would hurt your ears. So that was one thing that happened. And we've had a couple of things that happened, but it's always these attacks on these larger cities, and that's so ridiculous because we had our scientists there, kind of listening to that and observing it and pulling out our measurement devices, looking at it. We have devices now that can measure it. So they're still trying to do that, even in our time frame, to get control back. But there's not a lot of governmental control in most countries, except for the Asian countries. There's still a lot of governmental control, and that's about it in my time frame.
So there seems to be a lot of talk right now of taking action towards the bad actors of the world that have been identified for the most part. The World Economic Forum, Bill Gates, the pharmaceutical industry. We have this player of characters that with lots of names, the Illuminati, the deep state, these secret society groups. You said they're still going at it, or are they mostly identified and taken out having time out? I don't mean that taken out in the physical sense, but just go in the corner and you can't do this anymore.
Well, no, they always still try. They always,
wow.
but the difference in my time and yours is that you've generalized as Illuminati, deep state, Bill Gates, etc., and we know
Right.
exactly. We know who they are, which scientifics they are, why they're doing it, which teams they come on in science, and we have some religious teams, we have some science-based teams, we have some philosophical-based teams, and we know who those big players are individually. So what happens is they'll get a call out, and then no one will support their products, no one will buy what they have in their technologies. People don't need big pharma anymore in my year, so that can't control anything. That's 1/3 of the problem there. So that stopped in 2056, I believe, from what I remember here. And then with those other two teams, we know who it is. So we just go and talk about it, and everyone discusses it, and it's all over press. And there's no infiltration in press anymore. There's no such thing as press saying, oh, it's happened, be scared. We don't have that sort of control system in media anymore in my time. And we haven't for a while.
Right. This going back to the disclosures, you said these institutions and groups and schools, perhaps, that open up exchange with RET races.
Yeah, it's like MIT is set for remote viewing.
Okay. Do they have physical contact with ships landing and that kind of physicalized exchange?
In a certain way, much in the way that this channel does today, we have trained scientists and all sorts of seers as well who come in to make contact through other timelines and through other realms in those timelines. because you have to shift outside of your timeline, which is holding a very dense field at this moment, in order to have contact. So it's us contacting them. And then as we are invigorating the cosmogenic nature of the soul, then we can have deeper awareness and perceptions of what disclosure means. We can have contact more individually on Earth than we have been, because we've trained our brains to do this versus considering it just the aspect of the spirit. We train our brains.
What we're doing now in our groups like this, where we, especially in the warmer months, get together and do CE5, Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind, where we sit in circles and call in. Does that ramp up more and more? It sounds like that's what you're doing now in your universities.
We do. We have specific diet protocols. A lot of our remote viewers fast. They're not allowed white refined sugars that barely exist as a whole. If you go to a grocery store right now, you won't get white refined sugars because everyone knows how poisonous it is. So can you imagine the effect on the human brain of not having just white refined sugars, for example?
Right.
So we don't, most people don't drink alcoholic beverages. Most people don't. We start there by preparing the physiological to receive this information and to be able to become less dense so that it can travel throughout time and beyond.
Almost like preparing for an ayahuasca ceremony. I don't know if that still happens in your time or not.
In remote areas of the world, yes, it still happens, but a lot of the visions that you can get from ayahuasca are things that most of our remote viewers are working on and giving the tools for just regular people to do on their own daily. So you can have that kind of experience without having to have a psychotropic, medication. Or
Yeah, cool. With no need to purge. All right. It's so weird because you actually were alive in our time. So that's like, it adds a whole nother layer to.
Well, I'm pretty old now, Ruben. So,
Well, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like there's been probably through the modalities that you've introduced, aging has been prolonged a bit.
a little bit, little bit. Like, it's for my age now, that would be considered like a great grandmother when my children, if they ever decide to do it, to have children, but I don't think they will. I am considered, like, in my physical appearance, I look like a 45-year-old.
Wow, great. We didn't quite get into it too much, but what about the Earth changes that have been predicted that are part of these cycles? Now, you said this, perhaps they might be pushed off a little bit later, the severity ones, but we are having Earth changes, which is a reflection of our DNA. But how does that pan out moving forward?
Well, we've been studying what was the initial cause of some of the geomagnetic storms, the solar flash itself. The biggest solar flash occurred when a portion of the sun literally split off, and that was pretty recent in your time. And that began some of the largest geomagnetic storms and solar flash activities. That began a great drought, particularly in the western portion of the U.S. and certain central portions of the U.S. as well. So you have warming where it would be cold, and you have cold where it should be warm. And this is not, climate change is not a political issue. Climate change is real, and it is affecting you. It has slowed down a little bit for now in the West, which is really good. So unfortunately, for where you are in your time frame, although it has slowed down for now, it's not enough to sustain you over the course of the next 20 years. So some of you will be making a shift. Perhaps you'll be moving and getting your education elsewhere or moving your life elsewhere when these droughts get harder.
So in the West here, I'm in California, so fires are ramping up every year, getting more and more. And it sounds like that's going to continue then?
Yeah, California, Oregon, Washington State as a whole has a lot of difficulties in your time era throughout between now and 2045. And I'd say that from what I can recollect here, we have our scientists are deeply concerned still because around 2056, there were a lot of environmental changes involving certain extinction of animals that are deeply required. You don't have many bees left by 2056. And these are reasons for us to talk to you because we believe that you can slow this down even further than you already have. We don't believe that you can fully avoid some of these catastrophes, but we do believe that you can slow down the death of the bee population and its extinction. We do believe that you can change some of the shifts that are occurring in your governments that can happen more quickly and give you more individual and statewide power. We do believe that you can hold access to some of these free energies in your lifetime, because that's what we see looking back at history. So we know you're on a good track, but we do need you to amp up the pace in terms of just general things, making certain changes in your life to protect the environment.
Mhm. And and if we do make those changes individually and then eventually collectively, then perhaps we could avoid some of the more severity changes, big weather changes that happened in your timeline.
The droughts are going to be difficult to avoid. That's one of the things that we hope can shift the more we talk to you and the more we can share some of our technologies throughout time with you. But at this point in time, it's just that's one thing that's difficult to avoid is the pandemics and the droughts. There's other things that you have avoided already, thankfully, and will continue to avoid in terms of less hurricanes, less earthquakes. That can get better.
Mm. Okay. So this doom and gloom scenario, like the Edgar Casey map and this kinds of things where yeah, like half the world's covered by water or something like that, those aren't necessarily panning out the way some of these
It's shifting.
predictions.
It's
Yeah.
shifting. And maybe if you shift it right now, by the time you talk to me again, if Pamela talks to me next week, I will have a better life and my family will have a better life. So I have a vested interest in you.
Right, right. Yeah, I assume we would be interacting with different versions as we move along here, different versions of you. This again, from my understanding of time, is we're interacting with a vibrational frequency match version of us, who we are now, on this trajectory that we're on now. And we can obviously, through free will, we can shift and change and make great changes. So then this version of you that we're interacting with will no longer be the version that we interact with because we've made those changes.
I deeply hope that's the case, but you are forgetting about divine will and the cosmogenic nature of these. There's
Sure,
that as well.
sure. It's a sort of a combination of the two, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. The individual and the collective merging and having a party, right? That's what we're doing. We're having a cosmic party. So some of the folks in the chat are asking, has and I know this is sensitive. You don't have to go into this, or maybe you could find a way around it. But has Pamela interacted with Hannah, or does Hannah know who Pamela is at this time?
Only as of the past few days. She's relatively new to me and I to her, and we're just getting to know each other. So pass the plasma infused collagen and we'll get to know each other further. Oh, wait, you don't know what that is yet.
Plasma infused collagen. Okay.
It's our mortality drink is what we jokingly call it, which is what
Oh.
makes continue to hold my beauty today. And my we're not immortal, obviously, but we
Right.
can regenerate cells in our body by my time frame. We have been doing this for the past 8 years.
8 years. Okay. Wow. I'm well. If the timeline speed up and you can send that formula through, I'm sure my wife would love that. And me too.
And then we can meet.
Yeah. Exactly. Um.
I can tell you more about the Venusians too. We have a lot of
Oh, yeah.
interest contact through our remote viewers at this time with the Venus population.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go into that. Is it the same groups that we've been visiting in the past with, as mentioned earlier, Van Tassel and others?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We know him as Georges in our time. And he is in parallel time in our realm with us now. We call him Georges.
Oh, he's reincarnated in your time.
Yes.
Oh, is he still doing the same kind of work?
He
Contact?
does a lot of contact. He's a contactee, and he's a bit of an ambassador, if you will, for the scientific researchers in Venus. So there's been a lot more disclosure about Venusians as a whole in our time frame. So we work with him often. He's on our team. We think he's a bit of a kook, but we love him.
Aren't all kooks the more smarter ones, right? Doc Holliday, or not Doc Holliday, Doc from Back to the Future. Doc is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely a savant.
Awesome. And does Venus, we get to that evolutionary state or the vibrational frequency that perhaps you guys are at now, are you able to see Venus as as a thriving civilization?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And
Have contact often, and we are interchanging different technologies, such as like the aging technology or anti-aging technology, rather. Um, with the plasma infused collagen that came from Georgia's.
are you also connected to, say, realms, or do these realms become more prevalent, like Shambhala and Telos?
Telos is still in deep discovery. It's almost as if they don't want full contact with us yet, but we have some remote viewers working on it and coming across some small progress.
Okay, well, maybe we got to tell Adama to get with it, to be a little more chill out.
Yeah.
Uh, we're ready. We're ready to hang out. Um, and uh, in addition, you mentioned earlier Mars. You're getting contact from are these civilizations or beings from Mars?
Well, many humans have colonies on Mars at this time already, and that has been starting in your time frame now. And it's just not at your informational disclosure level yet, right? But I'm sure you know it's happening. And
This
there
is
are
the secret space program type ideas.
yes, yes, and beyond, yeah, beyond, and it won't be so secret by the time you reach my realm. Get hold of that plasma-infused collagen and live sweetly. But we are in regular contact with Martian beings. We don't call them Martian beings, but just for information's sake, we'll say that.
Are these the same beings that there's different lores and talks about in our secret societies, that the Mars beings have been here for a long, long time? Do they make themselves more public? And are these the beings that we're interacting with, or you guys are interacting with?
Well, it's not that they made themselves more public, but the secret space programs happened upon them and almost got killed. They didn't need to happen upon them. It wasn't their business to happen upon them. So that was quite an accident initially. And then our remote viewers, we had 2 remote viewer contactees who could evidence this and then go forth. When information is hidden, it comes out in my time, you see, because of our institute.
So, the secret society stuff that's going on right now, these space programs and different things that are being held back from our visual society, those are uncovered in your time. Is that what you're saying? Or
Oh, it's common knowledge.
okay,
We talk about it on media. It's all over the news and social media. And we also have remote viewing experts who can tell us everything that's going on. And it's not so the government's aren't so quick to just come in and wipe out an individual anymore when they can happen across this information. So
and finally, before we jump into another question with Mark, um, since Mars is such a hot topic, do we find out that Elon Musk is from Mars?
you al- you already know that.
Wait,
He's
he also
from
claims he's from Andromeda as well, but I don't think that
um
this.
we did not discover that. We
Okay.
discovered primarily that he was of the Maldekian race.
Mm,
And
okay.
then you tried to backpedal and say he was a Venusian, but Georges doesn't claim that. So we've done a lot of research, and he's no longer alive in our time. And he didn't. He was one of the ones that went forth to a certain way, in a certain capacity. He utilized the power that he had, and then he was unfortunately taken out of the equation.
Yeah, that's what we hope doesn't happen in our timeline. We want to keep him. He's doing good work now.
Yeah, and he will continue that work for quite some time, but unfortunately, there's many people who don't want him to go forward, and this is a tough thing.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
Have you done remote viewing with people in parallel times with like, contacting yourself in a parallel time? And do you still have people that are like we have people at various levels and like there's us who are doing this right now. And then but we still have people who feel that the earth is flat, for instance. Um do you still have such a wide range in people in your time?
Not so much. We don't buy that in this era because flat Earth theory is completely blown out of the water by 2060. Sorry.
2060, it takes that long. It takes that long. Oh, jeez.
It's unfortunate, but it's not clear science, and we unraveled that pretty quickly, hopefully faster. If perhaps you can do more of your contactee work, Ruben.
Okay. Oh, we got to get some more remote viewing going here. Yeah, it's that's a tough one, tough conversation to have. With people who are deep
We wish
into it.
not to offend anyone, but the science isn't supportive.
I'm with you on that. I mean, just the natural form is the globe, right? A sphere, spherical shape is just a natural form of any kind of matter. Water, if you put water it just, especially in a non-gravitational field, it just naturally goes into that sense. So that's just one of many examples to point to. But all truths are true, right? So depending on
You
the
want to
person.
know what we discovered about them? We discovered that Earth is initially more like a lingam form, and then it shapes, turns back around upon itself, appears flat for brief moments inside of time, and then goes back into round at the end of the lingam form. And then it appears or seems flat again. But that's because it's always looping back around itself as time transforms it. And as we are evolving beyond time, what we perceive of and what we can measure is also quite limited. So you may find that according to some of our remote view contacts in the 2100s, that the shape changes again, or the perception of the shape changes again, as you were saying.
Okay, I'm trying to understand what a lingam is. What is a lingam form?
Sort of like an oval that's flat, like that,
Oh.
with a round tip on the end, and then it appears flat for a moment, but then it goes round again. But it loops around upon itself in this fashion.
And that's and that's you said by the time we perceive it. So does that mean it's shifting? Is that like in its early stages as it's piercing through the veil through another dimension? It starts to take form and then goes into the sphere.
It goes into a bit of a wormhole. And when it's in that wormhole, the perception or the measurement is flat, but not for long. We are moving so quickly throughout time. So this is just the nature of entropy itself. And when we can understand this at a grander scale, then we can shift time in a way that is very conducive for lengthening of life, for regeneration of organs in the human body, for healing an overwhelmed nervous system. Most of our remote viewers came to us with a very overwhelmed nervous system and very frayed nerve endings, etc. And our tests can show us that, and now we can heal it.
And is that because they're going into these other dimensional realms with the remote viewing and it's shocking the system or sort of
Overwhelms the circuits, yeah.
overwhelms them circuits?
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, how does contact work for you guys then? Like, do you reach out to your future selves like we are doing right now?
Well, I am not Pamela's future self. She would be
Right.
lucky to live this long because she doesn't have access to this sort of science. However, it could be that as we understand each other further based upon our unique energy fields, remote viewing is possible because the universe is expanding. And then as you expand through this wormhole, you become less dense. And therefore, the frequency that you emit is transmitted and transduced in a very different way. And as you open more to this information, throughout time will no longer be your prison, if you will. It'll be your liberator.
Fascinating. Yeah. Exciting stuff to look forward to.
Mm.
Okay. Will has his hand up. Go ahead, Will.
Hey, Hannah, thank you so much for this experience. My question to you is the hybrid program known about, and is it, are the hybrid children still kept really secret, or is that something that's public?
Very public.
Which any predominant race, or is it a number of races?
What eventually was discovered is that there is extraction of DNA from various race systems, and our DNA has been extracted as well as humans and utilized to lengthen the life of other extra-dimensional beings, as you call it. So it's a bit of a DNA share, but we have Pleiadian, humans have Pleiadian DNA in our time, and we're very aware of what that means for us practically, what that means for our health, what that means for our unique ability. What we don't really have certain things, certain disabilities anymore, like learning disabilities or like we used to call it attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which does not exist in our time because we are aware, and we have tests that can tell you if you have any Pleiadian DNA, for example, because if you have Pleiadian DNA in the forefront, that will completely wipe out any trace of certain learning disabilities. So that's one example. We have tests that can tell you if you do have that and if your child will have a learning disability based upon that.
Awesome. Just to check right quick with the channel and how she's doing. I know we're going to end here soon. I just wanted to see how everything's going.
Oh, thank you. We're having a great connection so far.
Awesome. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up here soon. Will, you still had your hand up. Did you want to ask a few more questions? Oh, okay. Hands down. So just a quick question about again, going back to the higher programs in this sharing of DNA. It sounds like by your timeline, things have sort of worked themselves out. Is there a period of time where there is a discrimination, or even right now, because of the toxic chemical warfare that's been done on the human race, we're categorizing ourselves, some of us as purebloods, and this and that, and this. Is that happen in the hybrid? Is there like any type of discrimination or weird energy around the topic of a hybrid?
No.
Oh,
no, you went
wow.
through that period for a short amount of time between your time frame until about 2036, and then that went away altogether because the interest, it just, as you open up and expand your consciousness, you have to understand there's so much more potential, and your awareness just expands you as a soul being in your physiological and psychological constructs so much that you just don't have any interest in that degree of division.
Awesome. It's great to hear. I assume, especially us on the call here, we're not seeing that type of division, but it does happen in our society, and we see how even the whole COVID thing played out and how much division was created during that. So
that went down in our history books, and we teach, we added a whole new component of education based upon moral philosophy for healthcare because of that. So you taught us so much.
Good. So Will wants to ask, what brings you joy in your timeline and right now in what you're doing?
Just discovering anything new. I'm super curious, and my children are as well. And two of my kids are on my lab team, and we are always discovering new star systems. We are always looking for new ways to take back these technologies to lengthen human life and to expand our awareness. Consciousness is always fascinating. I enjoy walking my dog. I enjoy basic things when I'm not working. And I enjoy just not having to work as hard. This is one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, is that in 2045, do you know that anyone on the planet in any country can get a mortgage? There's no credit score. There's no social credit score. None of that worked out. Credit scores are eliminated. So people are actually measured by their capacity not to make money, but their capacity to serve their society by my time frame. And that's not too long for all of that whole system to fall. So good job on that. And you are the procreators and the pioneers of that.
Awesome. Yeah, we definitely want to move as quickly through these difficult times to new systems.
No, truly, I get to tell you, I paid off. I've had 7 houses. Now, I know I'm going to be an old grandma one day, but I've had 7 houses, and I paid off each of the houses in less than 2 years.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah.
Does that
Cool.
make not because of that?
And what's your work hours like? Do you have to work 40-hour weeks like we normally do here in the States?
No, no. In most employed situations, most people are self-employed and they come together to create cooperative programs. If they aren't self-employed, they're working for some degree of either a philosophical or spiritual or scientific or farming cooperative. So we have all of those divisions of employment and everything is trade centered. And we don't, people get equal pay. That started about 4 years ago in my time frame that everyone gets equal pay. So whether you're serving food at a restaurant or whether or not you are, you hold an astrophysics degree, whatever you have, it doesn't matter. You get the same pay. So people are given different mortgages based upon their family size at the time, how many children they plan to have. The unfortunate part is because we are still overpopulated, we are not allowed to have a ton of children. So that's unfortunate that we hope that we can change that. But who needs to have 10 children, right?
Interesting. So is it kind of like a Chinese system where you, no, okay.
No, we recognize that if we continue to overpopulate, it'll become a problem.
I see. And I know Mike's still hanging there, but this is another relevant question. Laura is asking about like saving money for retirement. Is that even a concept in your time?
No, no, you know how old I am, Ruben. I am never going to retire and I'm not exhausted because I only work maybe, and I apologize for avoiding your question, but I only work maybe 2 days a week. But the thing is, if I work 2 or 3 days a week, I will work straight because there's no such thing as physical exhaustion because of our plasma energy technology. We don't have to sleep as much. So this is what's new in science in these past several years. So we work 2 or 3 days a week, and then we have the rest of the time with our families.
Okay, cool. I'll let Mark hop in with his question now. Sorry about that, Mark.
This is so cool and fun, Hannah. Thanks for doing this. I wanted to expand on Charmaine's question that she had in the text and in relation to um, the channel actually contacting you in this present time, and like, have you thought about maybe like trying to give your younger self a message through the channel?
I had thought about it, but we do have certain rules. We are aware, all astrophysicists are aware that you can only play with time so much. And when it comes to changing the past, no one does it. But what we can do is talk to you so that you can create your future. And I am highly invested in that.
Yeah, otherwise, I hear time is like a rubber band. It'll repair itself if you go in and make a changes and things like that. It'll kind of bounce back into a universal law type thing.
Actions won't change, but time itself provides a certain capsule of consciousness, if you will, and your perception and your reactivity will vastly differ based upon that, based upon your consciousness.
I see. Yeah. So we couldn't break any free will type things because the consciousness won't be ready for it.
Right.
Right. Okay. So we'll wrap up on the questions here and we'll bring Pamela back. But last question, is it easier to travel in your time, and like, how does traveling work?
You won't believe me if I tell you, but I will.
Okay. Yeah, please.
We have some initial hovercrafts that are designated out through train systems, but this is through the aerodynamics of studying both helicopters and trains. So if you can imagine something that looks similar to a hovercraft, but have the aerodynamics of a helicopter, but move quickly and efficiently in a certain system as if it's an invisible rail like a train, then you will understand our travel.
Okay. And it's not just like one machine, like a train type of a larger machine?
Yeah,
That
you
can,
use an aerodynamic system. So we travel via air, but we bend space and time ever so slightly.
oh, okay. To create less resistance for the air.
Something like that. We operate manipulating the geomagnetic forces.
Oh, geomagnetic forces. Okay. Fun. Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing these images so we can use our imagination to hopefully help usher them into our world quicker and smooth, and looking forward to lots of fun things.
I enjoyed the communication. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Oh, that one was a doozy. Hold on. My
Wow.
God.
Yeah. Did you go hang out in her time while that
Yeah,
was happening?
yeah, that's what I was doing.
What can you?
So I wanted it to be really fresh for all of you to experience.
Yeah, super cool. How can you tell us just a little bit about your experience yeah, I know last time you talked about it, how it was very visceral and whatnot when you do this, but just to share another late since it's fresh.
In terms of how I remote view or how I go into it, or in terms of what it's like to be there?
Um, yeah, a little bit of both, but more about what's it like to be there.
Oh, well, it feels like just I was sitting in her office and there were 4 people around and I was looking at them and then I felt a jerk in my body and then it felt like she was talking through me. So at that point in time, remote viewing became different. So I
It's
remote viewed her
it,
and she took over.
and then it went into channeling.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
And in
could
that,
see her eyes the whole time. It was like as I was being her and she was being me, I could still hear her talking and I could see my mouth moving and stuff, but I wasn't sitting at my desk. I was in a very sterile lab environment, very white, with a different type of floor material that I've never seen before, and it appeared to be floating on top of something. And when they walked, it would move a little bit.
fascinating. And do you think in her time she was knowing that we were going to make this communication and that this portal was going to be opened?
She said yes, because when I met her, I was actually sleeping. I do a lot of my remote viewing and time travel in my sleeper when I'm meditating. And she said, "We've been waiting to talk to you." And I said, "Oh, no, not me. I'm just another channel." And she said, "Oh, yeah, okay, well, let's talk." And she just dismissed it as if it was nothing. And she didn't give me any explanation about why she wanted to talk to me or how she knew me or if just that she knew I was going to talk to her.
Right. Wow. So she probably had heads up on what's going to happen.
Yeah, I feel sometimes that they're researchers. So perhaps, like from what I understand from a lot of the other beings, they go through different journals, medical journals. They go through different newspaper articles. They will do their research on our time frame.
Mm, mm. I see. And if this makes sense, what did the density of the room feel like? Did it feel lighter than our current time?
Yeah, yeah. I felt like I did not want to leave. It was kind of hard on coming back into the body. I felt a pain in my shoulder as I was coming
Mhm.
back in. But when I was there, it just felt like I was sitting on this chair, but my bottom wasn't touching. I didn't feel my skin or my muscles like touching or making contact with anything. And she got up and started pacing at a certain point, and I could feel her feet walk across that floor and that unique type of material, and it was changing color in the floor when her foot was coming down, and I saw a pattern. As she lifted our feet, I saw this pattern that reminded me of how water on asphalt, like and oil on that on a rainy asphalt
Mhm.
surface will kind of move like that if you step on it, it'll move outward and back in like
Like
that.
the rainbow kind of color.
Uh-huh. Like if
Yeah.
you step through it, it'll bend a little bit and then come back.
Hmm.
So that happened. And there was an interesting smell. And she complained. I heard her whisper to someone while you were talking and trying to gather a question. She goes, "Turn off the condenser belt." So
Oh,
that was
okay.
it. There was this smell, and I was looking around, and I could see vials of plasma-looking stuff inside of sort of like a crystalline looking capsule. And there was energy inside of it that looked very plasma-esque, like pearlescent.
Mm-hmm.
And it was running through a conveyor belt behind her.
And when you connect to other future humans, because you've gone even further into the future, um, does the density feel even lighter, or is it different based on the timelines that you're tapping into?
It gets harder to remote view, and particularly for channeling the further out into the future it is. So sometimes I'll have to meditate longer, or I won't be able to eat before the channeling, or drink a lot of water, etc. Listen to my own light language, things like that. Make sure I'm not very tense in my energy field before contacting them. But I do feel differences in the different energies and the timing for sure.
Mm.
And it gets really hard um, the further away it is to come back. And I've just seen so many different things about time travel from them. And they've shown me different things about teleportation in particular. Not her, she's studying it right now.
Mhm.
So they don't travel in that way, but the humans from the 2100s had specific technology for teleportation. So that was really interesting. And they can go between the three groups of beings that they were discussing in our last conversation with teleportation devices.
Oh, okay. The three sort of colony. I don't even know if colony is the right
Yeah,
term, but three groups that
the
specifically
three
you're
groups
talking
of
about.
New Earth. Yeah, the three
Right.
groups of Earth is what they were calling it. Um, but it's been a journey. I could have never. I get so confused with some of the things they show me, and when I say, "Well, that can't possibly happen," they'll say things like, "Well, in the 1980s, you wouldn't be considering staring at this device and talking to people across the world. So consider this something similar." And you
Yeah.
just have to understand that it's outside of your belief system.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine you probably have more experience with time and the understanding of time than most. I think even other channelers don't explore these kind of time concepts as much. They just kind of do it and then they're like, okay, and then they sort of share their information. But um, I found, through listening to your videos and just through my own research of what is time, I found there's quite a synchronicity in our perceptions and your understanding from being a time traveler in
Yeah,
the
I
sense that
agree.
you're doing it. So
Yeah. It still
fascinating.
blows my mind though, like no matter what, no matter
Right.
what you tell me, I'm like, what? Every time.
Totally, totally, totally. Yeah, it's so it's so simple, but yet complicated. It's like there's lots of different ways to look at it, but at the same time, I think in our movies, I think we overcomplicate it a lot. I think it's much simpler than in some ways in some of the movies. Do you have a particular movie that maybe you resonate with that sort of, all these time traveling movies and stuff like that we have?
Mm. There's so many that I resonate with, but I feel like they're catching on to it like a little bit at a time, and there'll be like a piece from one movie, but not, and then kind of like blur it a little bit and get it too dualistic, and then there'll be another piece from. But right now, I'm really interested in the Netflix series Lost in terms of human parallel environments and realities after death, and that's been really resonant with me in terms of parallel environments.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'll have to check it out. Is it a new show? It's not the old Lot. I know Lost was an old show that used to be on TV, but
I don't know if it's old. It was on ABC, so I think it is old, but just the
okay.
more I listen to that, a lot of my guides are having me listen to that because they want me to kind of have a clear, practical way of understanding parallel realms so that people don't think it's so religion based.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Yeah.
So that is the Lost, like on the island, right? The airplane crashes. That story. Okay. Yeah, I think I caught season one. I forgot. It went on for several seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't we bring it to a close? And thank you for an awesome experience and right in alignment with what some of the themes we've been talking about, a little closer to home, which is nice to have that. And I highly recommend everybody listens to Pamela's other work. I think what I really resonate with, whoever you bring through, there is a message of practicality that I really resonate with, because that's one of the messages I'm trying to put out is, we can listen to these channel messages and do the inner work, of course, but even in in our physical realms, like it's just as important to make those shifts and shift our diets and shift our purchasing, what we buy, right? Even as Hannah was just saying, be aware of where our money and where our what steps that we can take in our physical reality to sort of get us into this higher reality that we all want to usher in.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
So thank you so much for all the work and all the different beings and you, who you are, because we wouldn't be able to connect if it wasn't for you in this way. So thank you so much.
I'm just a giant weirdo, Ruben, just like you.
Totally. We're all weirdos.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Into the woo we go. Awesome. Thanks again, Pamela. And thanks, Arnie. Appreciate it. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you liked this interview. We actually do this every week on my membership portal page. You can access it through interviewwithed.org or click on the link somewhere in here. I'll put a link and come over there and join us. You too can ask questions. Every week we have new special guests and you get to ask questions directly to the channelers and to the beings that they channel. So see you in the portal.